Today we have the bike of British national champion, under 23 silver medalist at the World Championship and London Olympian, Annie Last, and her Silverback SBC. So this is a bike that we're going to see hopefully Annie at the Olympics on. It's got 100mm of travel front and rear covered by RockShox. You've got the Monarch shock here and the SID suspension. What's really cool and quite unique about this frame is it's actually a one-piece carbon rear triangle. You don't really see that too often. They're often two pieces and molded together. You've got some quite nice features here, some red anodized bottom mounts and for your front mech, but you can see Annie's on a single ring up front. So onto the cockpit, we've got a nice set of Pro logo foam grips here, Ritchie trail. What you can notice about these is you can actually run them both ways, so that you can have a little bit of more rise, or you can have them nice and low. Annie's got them on the lower setting here. A Ritchie WCS stem, and that's 60mm, quite short for a cross-country rider. We've got SRAM XX1 brakes and SRAM XX1 drivetrain. We've got a SRAM XX1 rear shifter. Obviously Annie's not got a front mech on this bike, so she's only got the one shifter. And she's also finishing the cockpit off with a set of bar ends, which is quite unusual to see these days. And then the other noticeable thing to mention is this button here, and it just actually locks the fork out. Coming down to the wheels, we've got these Knight Carbon 29-inch wheels. They're an American brand, quite new, out of Bend in Oregon. And what's very noticeable about them is these nice bladed spokes here, red anodized hub. We've got a 15mm bolt through, and it's quite interesting that Annie does have a bolt through axle here, and it's not just a maxle that you do see on some of the RockShox forks. Finishing off, we've got some nice anodized red tubeless valves, kind of trying to match in with everything else. And she's running a set of Schwalbe Racing Ralphs and they're tubeless setup. And to finish off the wheel set, we've got 160mm rotor front and rear. Coming down to the drivetrain, we've got that big XX1 cassette. You've got a 10 in the smallest cog, and you've got 42 in the biggest. Coming up to the cranks, you've got this 32-tooth chainring XX1 crankset, and I'm noticing that there's a stages power meter hidden away there. You see a lot of the pro bikes coming with stages power meter just to measure the power that they're outputting during racing or during training. And I've also got a set of Shimano XTR pedals here. They're sort of a big favorite with a lot of the pro riders nowadays, and they're finishing the drivetrain off quite nicely. Now that I'm down here, I'm actually noticing a few more little intricate details. This whole linkage system, it's all carbon, and it's quite rare to see that, so that's really nice to see. And then moving up, we've got a nice Ritchie Carbon WCS seat post, and as you can see, it's got that bit of electrical tape just to mark Annie's saddle height. And it's finished off with a Pro logo saddle, and she's got a nice GB flag here. It's pretty sweet. So Annie, we're going to see you racing some World Cups aboard your bike. Now, how is it that you would pick between a full suspension and a hardtail, for example? We've got your full sus here.
Yeah, so the cross-country courses are getting more and more technical. So you're kind of seeing people riding the full suspension bikes a lot more, but I always take hardtail and the full suspension because some courses you need kind of to be able to just have much more speed. So you go for the hardtail, or if it's a more technical course and you need a bit more suspension, a bit more help to get around, then you go for the full suspension.
Yeah, that explains a lot, and we're seeing that we've got obviously you've got your lockout on the front here. Do you use that on the rear as well?
Yeah, so I actually use lockout quite a lot in the races because you've got some bits which are almost road. You're on roads and you're going up the climb, so you want the bike to be as rigid as possible. And when I race, I'll also have the option to have a lockout on the rear, a remote lockout on the rear. So with that, you can choose to have either two separate lockouts or them both on one button.
Yeah.
And it adds weight, but sometimes having two buttons, the extra buttons, is good because you can pick whether you've got your front locked out or your rear locked out rather than having to have a rigid bike or suspension.
Of course, yeah, it must make it super efficient. And I'm noticing as well, you've got a stages crank down here. Mm-hmm. So you've got that lockout on, do you actually feel the difference? Do you feel that you get more power when you're pedaling with the lockout on? And are you monitoring your Garmin that you might have up on the handlebars?
Yeah, so I use the stages for training and I have it on when I race as well. So when I'm training, I'm checking out what power I'm doing, have some specific kind of training to power, intervals, that sort of thing. And then when you're racing, you're in the race, so you've got that power to see if you want to, but it's about kind of racing your bike rather than sticking to certain watts.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, when you've got it locked out, you've got so much more kind of power power transition. Instead of you losing a little bit through the suspension, it becomes like a hardtail really, and everything you put through the pedals sends you forwards.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so if we come back up to the cockpit and noticing that you've got this really short stem, you've got your bar ends obviously as well, and you've actually not got a top cap here. Is that to keep it nice and low?
Yeah, so it's a 29-inch bike, and this is a medium frame, and I'm kind of like, this is kind of the bigger limit frame for me. Yeah. I actually really like to be able to have the shorter stem. I like how that gives you kind of the more accurate steering, it feels like. But in order for me to get the position that I need, I have to have no top cap and put it right down, which isn't ideal for maintenance, but it's what I need for racing. So.
Must be nice having that pro mechanic to help you, and I'm sure that he's got no problem to clean that out and put fresh bearings in if you need it.
You might not be too happy with it, but it works. So that's
if it makes you faster, then that's what you've got to do.
Yeah.
So we've talked through most parts of your bike now. Is there anything else, like chainring size? I'm noticing you're on this 32. Do you ever go up or do you go down at all, depending on the course?
So yeah, it depends on the course. I'd normally run between a 32 and a 28. Kind of 28 is definitely the smallest. You always try and go for the biggest chainring size you can. And 32 on the courses we have nowadays is kind of the biggest that I can manage. I know like a lot of the guys can go for 34s, 36s, sometimes 38s, but with the steep climbs, 32 is kind of maximum for me. And it just depends on the course. Ride the course and then try different chain rings.
I guess that makes sense as well, because you're pushing those big 29-inch wheels, so you don't want too big a chain ring. You've got to sort of weight up and balance it. So
yeah, exactly. And also I run 170 crank, so with a slightly shorter crank arm, it helps with getting on top of the gear. Yeah,
and do you ever do any training with a bigger chain ring to sort of build up strength, or is it all sort of based around your 32-tooth chain ring?
Yeah, when I'm training, if I'm on the road or I've got kind of not just the really steep climbs, I've got more of a general bike ride rather than the XC race courses, then I'll use different size chain rings. And sometimes in the winter, like you said, you've got the option for the front mech. So in the winter I might run a 2x chain ring to get the different gauge.
Yeah, those muddy climbs which can be pretty hard on a single ring.
Yeah.
So we've gone through your bike. Comes to weighing in now. What do you think it's going to weigh?
So we've got a few little bits, tweaking bits for the big races to make it a bit lighter. About sitting around 10, maybe, as it is.
Let's find out, shall we? Okay, you weren't far off. Half a kilogram here or there. What way do you think it went?
Well, I can hope down, but...
Well, it's 10.5 kilos, so pretty light.
Lovely. So yeah, hopefully with a few tweaks, we'll get it down 10. A bit more.
Sub 10, easy. So Annie, thank you for taking the time to let us check out your bike. Wish you all the best for the season ahead. For more great videos on GMBN, why not just click right up there for a Pro Bike playlist where you'll see Annie's bike as well.
Or you can click down here to see if cross-country riders can descend.
And as ever, click right there in the middle to subscribe. It's free and you get a great video every day of the week.
And if you like my bike, you can give it a thumbs up like.